Hey guys, Zen here, and an operator that I've been spending a lot of time with recently is actually Gridlock. Now, since the release of this operator with Operation Burnt Horizon, it's rare that I see another Gridlock player in ranked, and I think there are a few reasons for that, which are some of the thoughts that I wanted to share with you today. Now, obviously, we don't have any official pick rate or win rate data until the very end of a season, so I'm curious to know how often you guys are seeing or even playing with Gridlock yourselves. Now, personally, I do think that Gridlock is in a pretty good spot right now. There of course are some ways that she could be buffed up and made a little bit more mainstream into the meta, and we will discuss that in this video as well. But I think it's really important to kind of look at these operators and pay attention to what's working with them, what may not be so hot about them, and also what other operators that may be competing for the same pick in that ranked slot. And so one of the culprits and biggest competitions that Gridlock faces is Nomad. Both of these operators serve a very similar purpose of watching your back as you push with your team, and I think the community as a whole sees a little bit more benefit with an operator like Nomad. Gridlock is a 3 armor operator, and so she's slower and much louder running around the map than someone that's a 2-speed like Nomad. Being faster is always somewhat of an advantage in Siege, but added to that is the fact that we haven't seen a 3 armor attacker since the very beginning of the game with Fuse and Monty. Now, that's not to say that 3 armors are bad on attack. Personally, I believe that they're actually really good and serve as a really solid foundation for your attacking team. But again, this is kind of a foreign concept to a lot of people that are used to attacking with operators like IQ, of course Ash, and of course you can't leave out the #1 attacker right now in the meta, which is Twitch, who's a 2-speed 2 armor attacker. Now, what I'm really getting at is that a lot of people don't play 3 armors on attack, and so when Gridlock was released, she was automatically written off, and a lot of people just didn't trust their attacking rounds with an operator that was so different to what they're used to. Now, I actually did struggle with this when I first started playing as this operator, but there were 2 main things that kind of helped alleviate this and kept me coming back round after round, and that were her Trax gadgets as well as her F90 assault rifle. So as far as the Trax gadget is concerned and how it kind of relates to her operator speed, when you deploy this gadget, it's very loud, and that's definitely one way that she differs from Nomad. Nomad's gadget, although it was recently nerfed to have some sort of sound emitting from it, it is relatively silent, and so when people are running by, they don't notice it and they get triggered by it. With the Trax, on the other hand, this gadget is made to be loud and for pretty much everyone to know where and when it's going off, very similar to Ying's Candelas in that way. You Ying mains out there know that when you're throwing off a Candela, it isn't always just to blind the enemy, but it also dampens a lot of the sounds that you're making, such as plants going down and different things like that. So it makes it much easier for the attackers to kind of blindside the defenders by making a lot of noise on sight. It ends up being very chaotic. So Gridlock can take full advantage of the sound that her Trax gadget makes, and I almost use it kind of like how Caveira runs around with her silent step. When I'm on defense and I'm playing as Caveira, I almost never run around without my silent step because of course you don't leave footprints for Jackal when you're running around in silent step. And so with Gridlock, when I'm knee deep into the map, very close to the objective, I start throwing out my Trax gadgets to kind of mask the sound of me walking around with this very heavy and slow operator. And I know that may seem like a little bit of a reach here, but honestly, it is a tactic that I use with this operator, and it works a lot. So I highly recommend that you try it if you're struggling with a heavier operator on attack. Now, on top of that, the F90 is probably one of the most underrated weapons on attack right now. I know it doesn't hit super hard at only 39 damage, but there's just something about the recoil pattern and its fire rate that makes it silky smooth to shoot, and I've been saying this for a while, but I compare it to Twitch's F2. Now, one of the big reasons that I actually bring up the F90 is because I know a lot of people that play Gridlock, even if it's only a little bit, but I know a lot of people that play this operator and main the LMG because they're used to it either from Capitao, or they like, of course, the new sight, the really clean ACOG scope that weapon comes with as well. And it is a great weapon. The Saw is an absolute beast in the meta, and of course LMGs have their own kind of set of advantages, so I do recommend it. But the F90 is just a really solid, really consistent assault rifle that if you are someone that is playing Gridlock or wants to play more Gridlock, I highly recommend you give this weapon an honest shot because it just melts and it's a headshot machine. Definitely make sure you give the F90 a fair chance in the meta. And I know don't think you'll be displeased that you do so. So let's get on to the actual topic of this video and discuss some of the ways that Gridlock could be buffed up. Again, I do think that she's in a pretty good spot right now, but if we are talking about making her a little bit more viable in the meta and a little bit more appealing to play as, then I do think there are some things that Ubisoft could do to make her just a little bit stronger. And so the first place that I would look at in particular is her tracks gadget. Now, basically since launch of this operator, the community has looked at this gadget as a little too easily countered. I think one of the most logical ways to actually buff her up is to make her tracks a little bit more resilient to damage, maybe require 2 bullets instead of 1 per every tracks. Recently, Ubisoft did the exact opposite with Frost mats and made them a little easier to destroy by lowering their damage, and it's because of how powerful those mats can be in certain situations. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, give Gridlock a little bit more health to her tracks, so that way they're not so easy to take out and defense has to really think about if they're going to shoot them out or not. As a defender, if you're on a flank and you do come into contact with tracks, it's almost wasteful to use any sort of explosive utility like a C4 or impact grenades on them because of how easy it is to simply shoot them out. So I think giving them a little bit more health and making them a little bit more resilient might force the defenders to use some of that explosive utility, which of course does have its own set of benefits to the attackers. Now, honestly, the only other way that I could possibly see this operator being buffed is by maybe making her tracks deploy just a little bit faster, or at least initially deploy a little bit faster and then kind of slowly trickle out over time. The full deployment time for a tracks is around 10 seconds or so, and if the defender spot it while it's going off, especially the initial canister, they can basically take it out instantly. Now, if you compare that to an operator like Nomad, her air jab can be deployed instantly and only requires 1.5 seconds to fully arm, and then it's ready to knock back whatever defender comes into contact with it. So I think naturally, if they wanted to kind of make Gridlock a little bit better and kind of stand next to Nomad a little bit better, decreasing the time it takes for tracks to be deployed is one way to go about that. So for you newfound Gridlock mains out there, I wanted to give you guys just a few of my best tips for how to be most successful with her, just in case you are struggling a little bit with this operator. So the first thing is probably the most obvious, but make sure you're always running your smoke grenades with her. And on top of that, a little bit more of a pro tip here, use the same 1-2 punch that Glaz does by throwing out the smokes first and then throwing out your tracks and deploying the tracks within the smoke. This is actually really challenging for a defender to deal with, because in the smoke, if they can't spot that initial canister for the tracks, then the smaller disc will just continuously reproduce and almost all the tracks will be able to be deployed anyway. So it's just a really smart tactic to always bring your smoke with the tracks and kind of use that 1-2 punch. Another quick tip with this operator, and it's kind of a 2-in-1, but don't be afraid to go vertical with the super shorty. And on top of that, the super shorty itself is kind of a beast at killing other operators. And so if you do find yourself in a pinch, you don't have much ammo, or you are switching to a secondary, then the super shorty can definitely get the job done. But yeah, make sure you're going vertical with Gridlock, because she has a lot of potential above or even below an objective, because her tracks do not have any impact with Jaeger's ADS. So she can throw these things into any objective, basically penalty free outside of the defender shooting them out. So guys, Gridlock is an operator that I feel is criminally underrated in the meta right now and has a ton of potential. It's just going to take some time for the community as a whole to really settle in with her and figure out exactly her strengths and her weaknesses in a lot of cases. I know that this video has kind of been all over the place. There were some buff ideas, there were some tips, some thoughts, but I wanted to make sure that I got everything out for you guys and all of my general thoughts with this operator as we move past Operation Burnt Horizon and into the next season of Rainbow Six Siege. But of course, I want to hear from you. Have you been playing any Gridlock since Operation Burnt Horizon? Is this an operator that you think has staying power in the meta? And more importantly, how do you think she compares to Nomad? She definitely shares a lot of those similar qualities and a lot of that gameplay style, and so I'm definitely curious to know you guys' opinions on that. But beyond that, guys, there's just a quick update here, and I wanted to let you guys know that we will start streaming very soon here on the channel. And so I wanted to let you guys know that the ranked Q&A and more and all of that stuff is going to be returning here on the channel very soon. I can't wait. I finally got everything that I needed to kind of get it all going, and I can't wait. So I'm hoping hoping you guys do enjoy that. Also, make sure you guys follow me over on Twitter. We're doing giveaways over there. I'm always doing polls and asking you guys questions, and so make sure there's a link in the description. Make sure you guys follow me over on Twitter, and I'll see you guys over there. But with all that being said, guys, if you did enjoy the video, please drop a like and subscribe with notifications if you're new. With that being said, it's been Zen. I'm out.